French drivers at the French Grand Prix, trying to win this on the final lap. The 3 wide again, Guillaume down the inside. Guillaume moves across, they're both in front of Milan and Pouget.
Before you know it, we find ourselves here in the very final race of the competition.
And then they see truck racing and they think, this is crazy, you know, these are 5-ton machines, 1200 horsepower brake. Oh, look at that switchback. Oh, he's been mugged and a drift to show off. Back there, go on ball with Ben Gregory now. I love this. 10.5 minutes gone. Senna Lanson tries to go for the race lead.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Well, that's not a good start, is it, everybody? Get the wrong series trailer on. Oh, heck. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Chaz Draycott Media, and welcome to another round, the penultimate round of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. We're here at the amazing, not Mobility Resort Motegi. We're here at Twin Ring Motegi in Japan for this penultimate race of the season. It is the final of the penultimate of the 2 endurance races that we have towards the end of the campaign, and it's going to be a massive, massive challenge around here for the drivers tonight. But definitely looking forward to this one. My name is Chaz Draycott, but I'm delighted to say we have a substitute commentator for this evening. Unfortunately, Ed May has business elsewhere and will be either turning up late to the broadcast this evening as he gets home, or he may not get back in time at all tonight. So I'm joined by my good friend Dan McCauley, ex-driver in the championship, ex-teams champion as well, I believe. Dan, welcome to the booth, mate.
Evening, everyone. Thanks for having me, Chaz. It should be interesting to be on this side of the broadcast for once. Hopefully I can provide a decent bit of insight, because considering we are the reigning teams champions.
Absolutely. Dan raced with the reigning champion Lewis Ward for Apex Racing Academy last season, and to be fair, Dan, you were in quite a lot of amazing battles throughout the campaign, weren't you, with the RD guys and a bunch of the others in the field, one particular Simon Povey as well. You've raced against a lot of the guys that are already in the series, haven't you?
Yeah, it's a great group of guys. I think the racing in the series, everyone's at a very similar level throughout the field, and you can watch pro sim racing and get bored of it pretty quick, but every round of Sim Racers magazine definitely provides its own spectacle. It's nice to see that the RD guys are still
I'm not sure whether that was Dan's internet or mine that's just died there, everybody, but still, what we're going to do is have a look at the current championship standings at the moment, and it is Nils Corr that is top of the charts. As you can see here, 253 points to the 222 of Simon Povey. Nils does have the opportunity to take the championship win here tonight, and to be fair, it is going to be a very, very tough call for these guys to catch up with him, basically, and take that victory, because all he has to do tonight really is finish in third position, and that will be that. Simon Povey second, moves ahead of Taylor Adams after a good time at Phillip Island, and RD Simsport, as Dan rightly mentioned there, leading the team's championship with quite a healthy margin of 32 points. To be fair, Dan, that's like an absolute age between the two teams, isn't it, compared to what you guys had with them at Apex, because it was, what, 1 point at the end of the season or something?
I think we spent the majority of the season in single digits. The RD guys are pretty consistent and they know what they're doing, so it was a little bit of hair and tortoise last year, but it seems this year that they're both hairs, and and they almost a dominant performance in terms of the size of the gap compared to previous years.
Yeah, definitely. It's always interesting to see the team's championship, because it's one tiny little issue for one driver in a team can have such big implications over a whole campaign, can't it? Because there's more points on the table at each round, so there's more to sort of make up for every time, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. I know that the feeling of having pressure on you when you've got a driver that's constantly at the front. Lewis kind of paved the way for us last year, and it just means that you have to play rear gunner and score as many points as you want, and consistency is key. That's something that I've noticed Chris Smith has always been great at. James can put a performance in that's, he could win any race on his day, so it's going to be interesting tonight to see how Taylor and his teammate get on.
Yeah, Taylor Adams and Matt Slight tonight running different liveries this evening. There's a few new liveries on the grid for tonight, but we're going to go over them in a little bit, because there's the usual change for Ben Chalcraft and Mike Murphy, the two Minardi Simsport BMWs. Ben actually messaged me earlier on saying basically they're both running the different ring flavours for Seabrooks. You've got to be careful how you say that, really. Sour cream and onion for Ben Chalcraft and prawn cocktail for... Sorry, I've said that the wrong way around. I had one chance to get it right. Mike Murphy's in the sour cream and onion, and Ben Chalcraft, who we see here, is running the prawn cocktail livery. Dan mentioned Christopher Smith earlier on. We've got a special livery to show you from him as well, and the two Regenta Sim Racing drivers also in their own colours. Aidan Millward in the chat saying GT4, let's go. Aidan actually hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube today. Congratulations, Aidan. Really, really pleased for you, mate, and it is well deserved. Thank you very much for joining us here this evening. Now, Dan, it's going to go into late night, or, well, darker conditions, let's say, here this evening. It's 5:30 in the evening. The sun will set just before the race starts. What's the pressure like on a driver, knowing that the visibility and your braking points are going to change over the course of a race?
It does make it much more difficult. Sometimes it's easier to do it while you're in a pack. Leading, as the conditions change, definitely isn't a nice position to be in, especially somewhere like Motegi, where you've got lots of hidden apex corners. With some of the pit strategies as well, that also adds extra pressure, so when you combine that with the changeable conditions in the night, it can force some mistakes from some drivers if they're not on their A game.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think one of the key things when the day-night cycle first ever actually came to iRacing, people were having to get used to the fact that obviously their brake markers and things would change, because, I mean, even when we started racing together on iRacing, they'd barely brought the day-night cycle in, and every single lap you'd use the same shadow and the same marker, wouldn't you, for braking points? I particularly think of the end of the lap at Spa into the bus stop. That was a key place where the shadows would do their thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is a credit to iRacing how well they've got the shadows modelled, and it also gives some of these driver coaches a key point to note to the pupils that don't use shadows because they move, and if you move a braking point, the apex tends to be harder to reach.
Absolutely does. Absolutely does. We've got Danny Lee second at the moment. Matt Slight actually for Regenta Sim Racing, over 1/4 of a second clear of the rest of the field. Nils Corr only 0.02 of a second ahead of Taylor Adams. Mike Murphy currently in 5th place. He's only 0.06 ahead of Dean Powell as well. So mighty close as it always is. 3 different cars inside the top 3, or 3 different manufacturers, I should say. And that's another thing about GT4 racing, I suppose, Dan, is that the balance of performance has always been really, really good here on iRacing, hasn't it, between all of these cars, season on season?
I think, yeah, it's been really good. The hardest thing about the BOP in GT4 is trying to find which car suits you and how to extract the most out of it. Every car is good at something else. The Porsche was awesome on fuel last season. The McLaren was quick on outright pace, but it didn't like its front tyres. The BM had great straight line speed in some places, struggled in others. But it's just how you have to test all the cars to figure out how you can extract the most out of it. A lot of these guys have been in the series long enough, driving GT4 long enough, that they've now figured that out, and I think that's why we're starting to see a trend of people at the front. And yeah, it's great to see that Nils really got a handle on that BMW now, because when he first joined, it was he was a bit hit and miss, but he's been pretty up there all season now.
Yeah, absolutely. Nils Corr taking his first win in the GT4 Winter Tour as well, and doing an amazing job there. We were really, really pleased for him when he got that win. Got the cars now making their way out of the pit lane onto the circuit for qualifying. 15-minute qualifying session here, an open qualifying session as well, so all cars on track together at the same time. It is usually the Regenta Sim Racing drivers that tend to lead the field from this point, and it is them once again. You can see their special livery here. They said it's a Japanese-inspired livery. I was actually receiving messages from Taylor Adams earlier on. Just said they've got this sort of, it's like a JGTC inspired livery down the side of the car. It's very striking, not quite as busy as their usual sort of carbon fibre and metallic purple liveries, but still look fantastic. A quick shout as well to our championship, I can't get the word out, championship sponsors Oris Digital, Crockery Direct, Derbyshire Holiday Homes and Bespoke Shelters. Thank you very much for the support as always from all of you. It's great to have you all on board, as we now see these two McLarens working together. And this is very reminiscent, actually, Dan, of what you and Lewis used to do in qualifying. It's important to get out there on circuit and get the banker laps in and use the slipstream early, isn't it? Yeah,
it's definitely worth getting your banker in, but team play in qualifying in this series is so important. Me and Lewis use that to our advantage quite a lot. Usually him towing me around. It's pretty interesting to see that the Pro Sim Rig cars aren't towing each other in, because they did it in practice, and I think that's why they were both near the top. So it'll be interesting to see if they drop back and hook up with each other later in the session.
Yeah, Danny Lee actually streams his point of view of the championship, and to be fair to everybody, if they watch his Phillip Island viewpoint from last week, it's some of the most intense racing I've ever seen from someone's point of view. It's absolutely awesome. Danny's stream was great entertainment to watch, but you could see a little bit of teamwork between himself and his teammate Dean Powell. But as you can see there from the camera angle, it's just a case of they're both getting out on circuit as quickly as they can, getting a lap on the board, and then they'll probably work together a little bit later on. I wanted to now finally show you Christopher Smith's livery, because Chris has taken on board the Seabrooks livery, one made by Ben. Get your words out, Chaz. One made by Ben Chalcraft for Chris, and he's running that with a little bit of RD Sim Sport branding on it as well, but he's joined in the fun this evening, and this whole Seabrooks obsession has really taken over the championship. The whole Discord is just these guys showing us where they get their Seabrooks from and what multi-packs different shops have got in and what it's worth. It's a lovely community vibe like that, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, the guys are great. You have a good time on the track, and then even in the Discord during the week, it is a really good laugh to be involved with these guys.
We look here at Dennis Van Beelen, newcomer to the championship this season. He's having a solid run, though, at the moment. Currently finds himself 11th in the championship, 116 points, right behind Dean Powell and right ahead of Mike Murphy as well. So he's got a bunch of drivers close to him in the standings, and even though he's not fighting for the top positions in the entire thing, he's still got every chance to gain a position or two in the later stages. So we just look now towards Taylor Adams and Matt Slight, who are the furthest around a lap out of everybody. Going through the tight left-hander here, down towards the hairpin on what is the alternative start-finish straight. Dean Powell may be benefiting a little bit here, actually, Dan. He's not too close to them, but he could get a slight bit of slipstream on some of the faster parts of the circuit. What do you reckon?
I definitely think he could. He's probably at a point where he's got enough visibility that he can focus on his lap and then take advantage of the draft if he can just close in a couple more tenths.
Just have to see how close he can get to the back of these guys and just see whether he can just charge up behind them. That's the other thing, though. You don't want to be too close to the cars in front. And by the look of it, he's got a decent gap to him. You've got to be so careful over the curbs here. around this final section, and the first times will now appear on the board. It's Taylor Adams that wants to try and keep the championship fight alive, chasing down Nils Corr for the title at the end, and it is Taylor Adams that goes quickest. 158.132. Dean Powell splits the two McLarens in there, and he goes into second place. Mike Murphy next up, 4th position for him. Ben Chalcraft now in 5th place, but Ben 1.4 seconds off. He'll definitely want to improve on that. Danny Lee up there as well. We watch Simon Povey here to see what Simon can do. 2nd in the championship, hoping to at least take 1 point away from Nils Corr before the night is done. And Povey will cross the line, and we'll see what he's got on the board. 2nd fastest for Simon, 52 thousandths of a second off the top spot. Nils Corr just coming down the hill now towards the tight right-hander at the bottom. It's going to be an important overtaking opportunity tonight, isn't it, this, Dan? Because people are going to get a big, big run here.
Yeah, with the long straights and tight hairpins, it's a perfect recipe for overtaking. So I think qualifying is going to be key for the guys at the front that want to save fuel or save tyres and play the strategy game. But I think if someone's out of position, they'll definitely still be in with a chance. So I wouldn't rule anyone out, even if they have a bad lap here.
Nils Corr now coming to the line in the evil-looking BMW. Gilles Gardner goes 14th fastest there, and Nils Corr goes 6th at the minute, just 10 thousandths ahead of James Holman. 2 cars yet to put time on the board. Martin Kenyon and Toby Johns have not put valid laps in first time round. Taylor Adams has done another purple sector here, actually, in Sector 2, and it's no wonder when he's that close to the back of his teammate Matt Slight. We go on board with the McLaren now, growling its way back down the hill. Now he may have to compromise on the brakes here slightly because he's too close to the back of his teammate. If he's just getting that little bit of time on him over the lap. It's a good team effort though, isn't it, Dan? They're very, very close to each other and still in flying formation at least.
Yeah, they are nailing it. I would say Taylor should be a couple of car lengths further back to take a bit more advantage, but there's nothing to say they didn't start it and he's caught up over the course of a lap. I think we should try and keep our eye on James Holman here because he's only a second behind Povey, so that's perfect draft range. So I would expect a few purple sectors dropping in from him soon.
Danny Lee with a purple sector as well in Sector 4. 6 sectors on this circuit. It's quite a long lap here, nearly 2 minutes per lap. Matt Slight has gone fastest. Danny Lee then displaces him in the Danny Lee Pro Sim Rig car, 57.904. That's 0.2 of a second over the guys behind, so great effort that by Danny Lee. Stephen Burns, actually, who we welcome back, is 12th as he crosses the line in the BMW. What about James Holman and Simon Povey, though? No improvement for Povey. Holman goes 7th quickest, maybe just winding it up for the next couple of laps, I imagine, just to see if he can get any quicker. But that's the thing, it's, as we mentioned, getting a banker lap in and then trying to just continuously improve on it from there is the aim of the game, isn't it?
Yeah, you can, once you've got that banker and you can do whatever you want. I know in the McLaren we had to pit for front tyres to try and get that good lap in at the end when the car's on low fuel. So I'm not sure if Simon does that or Taylor, but it would be interesting to see what the guys get up to at the end. The McLaren will get worse as the session goes on, even though the fuel drops out. So fingers crossed the guys can close that gap to the front. We want a nice close qualifying.
Mike Horder, bad timing to notice that Mike Horder is back with us this evening in the magenta boosted motorsport machine in the Aston Martin. I think that car's normally a bit more pink and white. Oh no, it does have the large white section on the bonnet. I thought down the side of it was white as well, but Mike's just had a little bit of an off into the gravel there, and he's now going to dial it back in again for another go. Toby Johns here is currently the 20th car in the field. Only 20 cars tonight as opposed to our usual at least 30, or well, sometimes we get about 26. But a smaller field here, which actually means that if everybody finishes, everybody gets points. And it's important to be in it to win it like that sometimes, isn't it, Dan? Because then you can, make the most of the evenings where you don't have to beat as many drivers to get the points on the board.
Yeah, 100%. Even if if you're unfortunate enough to have a bit of an accident, these rounds where some people don't show up are real godsends. So although it's not great for viewing sometimes, it can help drivers make an exciting finale come the end of the season.
Definitely, certainly is. Danny Lee has gone into the pit lane from pole position, so he's maybe going to get some new tyres on the car. Simon Povey's improved in every sector and then done a purple sector at the end, and there it goes on the board. Nearly 2/10 clear of Danny Lee as well. Ridiculous time by Simon Povey, 157.728. He's hoping to take away every single point that he can from Nils Corr as I mentioned. Here is the BMW now, with just 6 minutes on the clock left to go. James Bostock in the chat as well. Good to see you, James. James, one of the admins for the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship that we broadcast here on Chaz Draycott Media on Thursday nights. And we'll be back with them once again this next time round. We'll go to Hockenheim with them for 2 sprint races, which should be good fun. Hockenheim's always a circuit where the racing is entertaining. Just don't ask Dan. We've got Nils Corr across the line now from 7th place. What will he do? No improvement there. So Nils not quite on it at the moment, Dan. Well, I was expecting to see him up there straight off the bat, but maybe he's just taking it a little bit easy tonight, knowing that the championship is within easy reach.
I was looking through his practice times, and they are very, very consistent. Maybe he's focused more on race runs than practice, but that's a very dangerous game to be playing when you're up against Simon Povey, because when the pressure's on, if anyone's going to be able to pull it and win it, I would have to put my money on Simon. Nils always seems to race better than qualify, so it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, Nils has been an absolute star with his strategy calls from the very get-go. I mean, that first victory that he took in the GT4 Winter Tour at Fuji, it was a very well-received result. Everybody was so pleased to see him do it. And that was all down to strategy call as well, saving fuel and just making the car work at the end. Taylor Adams has got himself back onto the front row of the grid ahead of Danny Lee and Matt Slight. So we've got the 2 Regenta cars inside the top 4. Holman is 5th with Dean Powell now in 6th place. And it's a trio of BMWs, Nils Corr, Mike Murphy and Christopher Smith. Mike Horder currently finds himself in 10th position. We've got Rob Sharp again with us tonight in the Orberis Racing Porsche GT4. Love this car. He's got the metallic green down the side of it as well tonight for us, as Rob. He's been changing that little stripe of colour over the season. Christopher Smith improves into 8th position. It doesn't go any further up than that. That chicane at the end, real nightmare, isn't it, Dan? Because it looks like 2 90-degree corners that back onto each other, and you feel the need to drag the car around them, don't you? It's horrible.
Yeah, it's so easy to overdrive it. It's one of those slow in, fast out, but you don't want to go too slow that you give up some time. It is very hit and miss, especially in qualifying. You can quite easily get a 1 extra there, so no doubt the guys would just... Some of them could still be trying to get their banker in. I know Chris is now hooked up with James. They had a couple of slow laps there to try and get together. So we could see Chris jumping back up the order a bit here.
And as we look at James Holman and Christopher Smith, one of their teammates, Callum Brandt, is in the chat. Good to see you, Callum. Callum was driving this Mercedes previously in the championship and one of the absolute stars that was right up there. And to be fair, actually, Dan, it was between him and yourself the amazing bit of sportsmanship that we saw at Catalunya at the end of the season between yourself and Callum, where there was a little bit of an incident, but Callum, sacrificed the championship to wait for you and prove that sportsmanship.
Yeah, I can't speak highly enough of Callum. He is annoyingly fast, annoyingly good at fuel saving and tyre saving, and he seemed to just come out the pits with a massive gap every time. But the sportsmanship at Catalunya was fantastic. I think not only did he risk the Drivers' Championship, but the teams as well. If I hadn't spun by myself at the end, it would have been a different story. But the RD guys are a great bunch of guys, and they're a pleasure to race against, as is everyone else in this league.
Yeah, it's a fantastic group, and it's certainly looking very pretty at the moment as the sun goes down here at Motegi. It's all very much in the shadows, and it will only get darker here tonight. There's only a certain bit of the circuit as well that I remember is floodlit, so it is going to be almost pitch black by the end of it. So fantastic baptism of fire to bring a new commentator into the box when you can't even see the liveries. So that'll be a good show of you how much you've learned over the course of tonight, Dan. But once again, well, there's not much learning to do with the fact that Simon Povey's usually at the top. He's another one that's annoyingly quick, even if he is in my livery. But it's just another show of what Simon can do at every track, isn't it? I mean, you can't be mad at him for it.
I mean, you can. So I'm pretty good at doing it. But Simon's been around a long time, and I think his experience really does show in this. I think you could almost call him of the age of a gentleman driver, which is why he's so quick in GT4.
Oh, goodness.
Can't wait until he watches that one back. But Simon's a great guy, and I do think if anyone can take this fight to Nils, it's gonna be Simon.
I'm delighted to say that we're joined in the commentary box by Ed May, another driver that has raced against Simon many a times, had a championship fight with him back in season 1. Ed, welcome back, brother. Are you all good?
Yeah, all good. I managed to get into the comments box as quickly as I could. Not as quick as Simon Povey, who's currently top of the timing sheets, as per usual. I'm not sure why I was surprised to see that when I logged back on and saw that Simon was way up there, but managed to get in here just in time, it seems, for the end of qualifying, where the drivers are really pushing hard to get those extra few tenths out of the car.
Absolutely. With the 20 cars on the grid tonight, like we've mentioned, that means that everybody, as long as they finish, will score points. Just a quick recap for you as well, in particular, Ed. We've got Christopher Smith in a Seabrooks livery tonight as part of his support of Ben Chalcraft and Mike Murphy. Still with RD Simsport branding on it here and there, but the RD Simsport guys are both running the prawn cocktail and sour cream and onion rings because Twin Ring Motegi. But also, we've got this third car, essentially. Now, Christopher Smith has not changed teams, but we're going to have to keep our eyes out for this over the course of the night.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to see Christopher Smith supporting the Seabrooks BMWs, but he came off the back of a great result himself, didn't he, actually, at the last round at Phillip Island. So
yeah.
We're going to see if he can recapture that form that we saw last time out, where he got his first ever race victory in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge.
Yeah, he said to me it was a bit of a celebration livery of the fact that he got that win. We've got Simon Povey coming into the final few corners, looks absolutely rapid on the way into that chicane there, really attacking it. And it seems, Dan, like they can go quite wide actually around that final corner to not get an off track actually. They can get away with quite a bit there, can't they?
I would say he was flirting with it with how far he pushed it there, and judging by how many purple sectors he had, I think he's a bit brave to be doing that. But I think that's a Simon lap there for you that kind of proves why everyone speaks so highly of him and why he is coming back into this championship fight.
Unbelievable, isn't it? Simon Povey, second in the championship, and after missing 3 race meetings, he's taken 5 race wins out of the last 7 races, and only one of those, which was the second race at Phillip Island, he wasn't on the podium. It is remarkable form once again by Simon. We look here at Matt Slight and Taylor Adams, the 2 Regenta Sim Racing McLarens, and they actually head into the pits. Now, the pit lane entrance has been badly obscured by that building, apparently, but also a big talking point in the Discord today, Ed. The drivers saying that you can get slowdown penalties and off tracks for cutting certain parts of the grass, so that may change a little bit here with the race itself, actually, and how quickly they get in the pits, we should say.
Yeah, I think I was checking the Discord as I was on my train journey up and noticed that we were trying to corral the drivers into being as realistic as possible and not taking the mick of track limits on the way in. Not so sure if obviously we'll be able to really enforce that, but it's sort of a gentleman's agreement as much as we can sort of muster up from these lot, to be fair. It's been good to see that everyone's been more or less on board with it.
Yeah, definitely. And to be fair, it could be a potential important pit lane entry like we saw back at Jerez, where we had contact between drivers on the way in, drivers losing the rear end of the car on the way in as well, if they're trying to save those extra tenths of a second. And it's one of those little details, isn't it, Dan, that it's very easy to forget to practice something like that when you come to a race meeting like this.
Yeah, but it's also you can practice it and mess it up, like Simon did so famously at Red Bull Ring, that I'm not going to let him forget.
My God.
But yeah, the pit entry and exit is something that you can gain a second in the pits quite easily, and trying to gain a second in the race sometimes is pretty hard. So you can sort of get a good feel for it in half an hour's worth of practice. So hopefully the guys have done it, and well, clearly they have because they found this little advantage that can be gained.
Yeah, we'll have to see how they apply it in the race and whether anyone manages to nail it. Qualifying just coming to an end here then at Twin Ring Motegi. Another quick shout out to our championship sponsors, Oris Digital, Crockery Direct, Derbyshire Holiday Homes and Bespoke Shelters, Chaz Draycott, Dan McCauley and Ed May in the commentary box here for the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. And we've got just a moment now before the grid gets all formed up, but once again, another pole position for Simon Povey there, Ed. It would... Well, you'd have thought it would change the championship, but Nils Corr could still finish in 3rd place here and take the title tonight. So just shows you how consistent and strong he's been over these last few rounds, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And while Simon has been the on-form driver since he's returned back to the championship, it's just the advantage that Nils Corr was able to build up, and then the way he's been able to approach the races since on account of that advantage. He's been able to really hold on to it. We can imagine, I think, if Nils didn't have that advantage over Simon, we might see a few more victories for Nils, but he doesn't need to do that, does he? He can just go about his business, and like you say, with a podium finish, can wrap up the title tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Nils Corr won 4 of the first 5 races of the season, and out of the 13 races we've had this season, he's only been off the podium twice, and one of those, let's not forget, was round 1, where he had contact with Matt Slight on the very first lap. So again, just showing how solid he's been all season long. It's Simon Povey on pole position with Taylor Adams alongside him, the 2 drivers that are trying to make sure that Nils Corr doesn't win the title tonight. Danny Lee and Matt Slight make up row 2, Matt hoping to support his teammate with Nils Corr behind him, championship leader, potential championship elect in 5th. James Holman is up there to try and spoil the party as well. He's in there in 6th place with Dean Powell and Christopher Smith lining up on row 4. Mike Murphy and Mike Horder make it an all-Mike row 10 ahead of Rob Sharp and Ben Chalcraft in 11th and 12th. Following them is Dennis Van Beelen alongside John Roberts. Stephen Burns and Gilles Gardner make up row 8. Then we have Toby Johns and Martin Kenyon. And on the back row of the grid, Mark Johnson for Legends Racing alongside Philip Hopley. So we wait now to see all the drivers make it to the grid, and it is Simon Povey on pole position. And he's going to start on the right-hand side. What do you think the strategy will be here, Dan, for getting going off the line? Because some people would potentially go round the final corner and then go in a straight line. Do you reckon Simon's going to just gun it from the apex?
I'm not too sure. Simon's usually pretty fair and gives everyone a chance, but the Motegi last corner is a bit unique. I think he needs to give himself as much of an advantage as he can, because I think down behind Nils it's going to get pretty feisty. Having James Holman and Dean Powell right up there trying to push forward to help the teammates, I think Nils is in danger of dropping back rather than going forward. I wouldn't say this podium finish is guaranteed for him, so I think Simon needs to get as good a start here, get a gap, and hope that some of the other cars can do him a favour.
We'll have to also keep our eye on how the McLaren's tyres get on as well. It's clear the McLaren goes very well around here at Motegi, but there's only one way to find out how it does in the long run. Out of the final corner they go. Simon Povey hits the gas pedal, and it is round 14 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge that gets underway, and Taylor Adams on the left-hand side of the circuit holds station. Simon moves all the way over straight away, and Danny Lee tries to go down the inside of the 2 McLarens into turn 1 and gets it done. It's a double apex right-hander, so that inside line has really helped him. Nils Corr also going past Matt Slight through there as well. Looks like everybody's kept it nice and tidy in the background. Dennis Van Beelen just taking a bit of a wobble this way and that way, but a really clean start there, Ed. And again, like Dan mentioned, fair stuff from Simon Povey.
Yeah, Nils Corr just holding station for now, getting a nice clear gap where he doesn't want to get involved in contact because that could wreck his championship here tonight. So did all that he need to do, banking on his mid-race pace of him and the BMW, already lifting and coasting. You can hear now, it really is a statement of intent for Nils. This is a circuit where you can save quite a decent bit of fuel. We've got some long straights, but also some quite heavy braking zones where you can lift off a little bit earlier, brake a little bit later, save the fuel without losing too much time. So that's going to be something for the drivers to think about. I'm not sure if it's quite on the level of the Hungaroring in terms of the amount of fuel saving you can do. I'm not expecting a one-stop, but can all help out towards the end for that final short pit stop.
Well, you say
I think we could get close to the one-stop.
Yeah, I was going to say
I think we could get very close.
Simon Povey was expressing his fear of it earlier on tonight, actually. So Simon does want to try and get away. I mean, he's doing a very Simon Povey-esque thing at the moment. We're just looking here at Toby Johns and Stephen Burns having a bit of a ding-dong. But Simon Povey, I mean, look at him. He's 1.3 seconds clear already. I don't know. It's so annoying at the same time. But you can't, like I said before, you can't be mad at him for it. But Danny Lee, he's the one fighting the Regenta McLarens right now.
Yeah, he seems to be taking the battle too, which is great to see. But again, we wondered if they were going to see the one stop at Jerez, and it didn't quite materialise. So I'm not trying to get my hopes up too much about a dramatic shift in the strategy. But we know that Simon, he's going to look to build the gap as soon as possible. Look at him right over to the barrier on the inside line, to the pit wall. He's really trying to break the slipstream as much as possible. As all Rob Sharp's had a little incident and drops to the back of the field. What happened there for Ouroboros Racing?
Oh, spin.
Just
Headbutted.
Just have a little spin.
Headbutted by.
Do you reckon it was a punt?
I think Van Beelen had a little bit to do with that there, as he just shoves the Porsche around the corner, and then again the Porsche weighs just about as much as the cone that it just ran over. So when it gets hit by the absolute tank that the BMW is, there's only going to be one winner there, I'm afraid. And we've got a bit of a quartet of BMWs in the middle of the field here, Dan. And another sort of question to you that, you know, you've raced against these cars before. Does the height difference have any sort of intimidation about it with big cars like the Beamer?
It just makes it really hard to see where you're going. There's many a time I've been following Nils and tried to have an opportunistic move, but the car's pretty good on the brakes, and you can't see a braking marker for it, so you tend to sail past him. So I'm sure some of these other cars will be a bit more aware of it, having raced them all season. Yeah, it's a great car. It does throw challenges up, but
Stephen Burns there just tipped around by John Roberts. I don't think Stephen had enough room on the inside. Sounds like someone else has gone around as well, and that is Gilles Gardner off the road. He's had a spin in the other direction through the right-hander. Maybe just the weight transfer getting the better of him there, Ed. We've all done it. Yeah, it was.
Let's have a look here. It was. He just got thrown offline as well, and then you try to overcorrect, tighten the steering a little bit too much. And these cars, especially in the first couple of laps, do not like if you put too much steering lock on. It just tends to swap around on you, and that is exactly what happened to Gilles there. But not so good for the Scottish drivers, is it? Rob Sharp and Stephen Burns both having little incidents at the start of this race. Hopefully better things will be coming their way as they can maybe focus a little bit more on the strategy and not so much on the cars around them to claw some positions back up. Once again, Simon Povey very close to the pit wall.
At one point,
really trying all he can to break the toe, isn't he?
At one point, he was 1.8 seconds clear of the guys. It was about 1.5 seconds going into turn one. And he is absolutely on a mission here to get away. He really doesn't want to give any slipstream to them at all. Like you say, Ed, definitely making his intentions clear here. It's good to see the Aston going well, though, in the hands of Danny Lee. I'm sure he'll be making this a very entertaining stream, having to hold off some of the fastest guys in the series there, Taylor Adams and Matt Slight behind. Nils Corr also putting a bit of pressure on the McLaren here as well, Dan. He's in quite an opportune position, though, isn't he, for fuel saving and just watching the battle in front of him.
I think Nils is going to sit here as long as the guys don't start fighting ahead. I think Simon's going to be hoping they start battling to slow it down, because it's pretty clear that Simon's just going, balls to the wall, let's see how big a gap I can pull. These from second to fifth are just trying to save some fuel. It's working for Nils, but you can't let Simon get too far ahead, otherwise it'll be game over.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot of elements and levels to the strategy to make it work. I mean, look at the way that he's just smoothly guiding this BMW around here, but you can hear the lifting and coasting here, Ed. He's barely using any revs at all throughout this whole lap. It's a bit of an art form, isn't it, really?
It really is, and by lifting off, you kill a lot of the speed, so you can brake later into the corner, and then it balances itself out. You're only losing, say, a tenth or two into every corner that you're fuel saving if you can do it right, and from there you can really make up the difference, they say, by either eliminating a pit stop or by having a very short final pit stop that really eats into those seconds that you maybe gave up on the circuit. It's all a little intricate dance and battle that we don't quite see on the circuit, but we do finally see sort of erupt into action, don't we, Chaz, right at the end of the races. So it might not be the most thrilling thing to watch right now, but in those final 5 minutes, it just
Absolutely does. It's always very entertaining to see how it all pans out in the final stint. And the drivers, you see everybody's body language change in the field. You see certain drivers chill out a bit more because they know they've got more of a gap and they've sort of done most of the job in the pits. But you also see a bunch of drivers really not look desperate, but you know, they know their time is running out, so they have to properly push in the final moments of the races, and they crack on from there. We ride on board here with Toby Johns. Toby, a relatively new driver to iRacing, but he's continued to improve week after week. He chases down John Roberts, and to be fair, Dan, just thinking about it, John Roberts has probably been in just about every league that you've ever seen, hasn't he? He's very much like me. We're always sort of in the same place.
I think John is, you could almost call him a staple of UK sim racing. I think he's one of the perfect advocates for the hobby. You see people going pro, tend to fall out of love with it, but John seems to just keep cracking on, and he's doing well for it. So he's a character, John, and he always seems to go well. Great addition to any league, I think.
Absolutely. As part of the boosted motorsport team, his teammate Mike Horder just a little bit further up the order. Unfortunately, we don't have John Barnes here this evening in the gorgeous black McLaren that he usually runs in. Very evil looking machine. The McLaren's quite a friendly looking car in most liveries, but he makes it look rather menacing. Simon Povey now has extended that lead over 2 seconds here, Ed, so he doesn't need to compromise his lines anymore to get rid of slipstream for people. He's pretty much got the job done. All he needs to do is continue hot lapping like he does, while these guys potentially fight behind, because Taylor Adams is right up with Danny Lee now.
Yeah, but once more, I don't think Taylor Adams is going to be too upset by the pace that Danny Lee is setting. Sure, he's losing ground to Simon Povey, but I think even if Taylor was ahead, they'd still be losing around about the same sort of speed. So for now, Taylor Adams is basically just going to stay in behind Danny Lee, unless that gap grows a little bit too much for his liking. I think Taylor's in a perfect spot, and he's also helping out his teammate Matt Slight, which is another thing to think about as well, is potentially not only upsetting his race but also the race of his teammate if he was to battle with Danny. So it's all about not where they are at the end of, say, lap 5 or 6, but probably by the end of the race. Might see a little bit of battling just before the pit stops, Chaz, because we often see that with the drivers, don't they? They get a little bit racy towards the sort of 25-minute mark.
They absolutely do. Just when they know exactly where the fuel is and where they're going to be pitting, you do tend to see body language change again. Philip Hopley and Rob Sharp having a good old ding-dong here in the Mercedes and the Porsche. These two wanting to take it right down to the apex. Both of them going a little bit hot, though, and they've both overdone it. Rob Sharp went a little bit deep into turn 1 just before, and Philip Hopley's gone a little bit too deep now into turn 3. Very easy to do it, though, isn't it, Dan? When you're battling away with somebody, you're sort of checking where the other guy is, looking out your right-hand mirror or your left-hand mirror, and then all of a sudden you've gone past the apex.
Yeah, it's so easy to do. Often in these races you have so much going on. Simple little things that other drivers do. It's so easy to throw you off course.
We see here Dennis Van Beelen and Ben Chalcraft. To be fair, the livery alone is enough to throw you off course when it's Ben Chalcraft's car wobbling its way past. It's part of the Seabrooks branded Minardi Simsport team. He's the prawn cocktail rings this evening, whereas Mike Murphy usually carries the green colour on the car. He's just up the road here in the onion rings livery. And we've then got Christopher Smith 2 cars ahead. Still RD Simsport, as you can see, there's still RD Simsport markings. It's almost like he's done it so that they've sort of ripped the vinyl off from the outside. There's still a few marks on the car from the vinyl, which I really enjoy. Chris been very creative with that, but he's going to come here with ultimate confidence, maybe not in the BMW, but in himself after that win at Phillip Island, Ed. It was a very well-received result, wasn't it, that?
Really was. It was great to see those cars do so well, because we've seen them a lot all season. We've been waiting, haven't we, just for that, just to click for them. And it was, like you say, very, very good. The whole field was just elated for him. So we'll see now, maybe Danny Lee running a slightly wider line. Is that going to get the impetus for Taylor Adams if those mistakes keep creeping in? That last lap, actually, for Danny Lee was only a 10th off of Simon, so maybe not necessarily going to be battling. And no, I think actually, if anything, Taylor was almost bump drafting the Aston Martin down the back straight.
You have to be careful with that, though. The nose on that McLaren is a mighty, mighty low bit of kit. Sure, the Aston Martin isn't a rear-engined or mid-engined car, but I tell you what, it's pretty scary if you're in the Aston, because it's quite a tall, chunky car, so you can definitely shovel the nose of that McLaren underneath it and potentially lift the rear end off the floor. We've actually got a question for you directly, Dan, from the chat, asking from Callum Brandt as well, will we be seeing Dan and Lewis in future seasons again? So it's turned into a live Q&A.
Potentially. I think Lewis is extremely busy with the Apex Racing team growing so much. I know with all their Rennsport adventures he's been jet setting to cover the media stuff. I've just been a little bit too busy with work. I'm really gutted that I missed out on this season. I've asked Chaz if I could do the last 3 rounds multiple times, to which I've been told no. But yeah, I'll try and lobby Lewis again and see if we can get back in for next season.
I knew that as soon as I asked that I'd get thrown under the bus somehow, but it's, I'm sticking to the rules, damn it. Do what we could do.
One thing I'd like to bring up here is Chris Smith and James Holman, the master strategists behind the Hungaroring one-stop, seem to be oddly slow.
Yeah.
And I've got a feeling they're doing something with fuel. They're sitting in draft, they're managing the pace, they're both pretty consistent. I think we could be in for a little bit of a shock here near the end.
I was going to say, if you look at the lap times, Holman's last lap was a 1:59.4, 1.2 seconds off Dean Powell up the road. These guys could be calculating how much time they save by not pitting and managing that over the stint. Well picked up, actually, Dan. I think that if anyone was going to do it, Ed, it's going to be these boys after that Hungaroring one-stop, the legendary Hungaroring one-stop that we saw. Let's not forget John Roberts did it as well, to be fair to him. True. John was the unsung hero of the day, really, because he made it work and gained a load of places. But obviously the race win went the way of the RD boys because of that amazing, amazing strategy, and Chris was the mastermind behind it. So, yeah, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be them boys.
I can't tell you how angry me and Lewis were when that worked for them. By the time we realised what they were doing, it was too late. Yeah, it was like watching your own funeral, to be honest.
Did you go frantically looking around?
Oh. I lost you then, Ed. I don't know whether that was me or not.
Oh, well, that's something to know for next time.
To be honest, I wanted to know where they kept the extra fuel tank. I know the M4's big, but I didn't know it could carry an auxiliary tank in the boot.
I do remember that was an absolutely just amazing moment that I don't think me or Chaz ever expected to see. But
No.
we thought about it after the broadcast, didn't we, how to speak? And we thought, keep it as it is. They want to mandate the 2 stops.
No,
like
no.
the unpredictability of, on occasional rounds, if drivers are able to save the fuel and make it work, then why not? Because it's just right on the edge of being roughly about the same pace, isn't it? Saving the fuel, but if you've got Simon Povey's pace going all out, it sort of balances out. It's kind of just like an unstoppable force and an immovable object. Simon, the ever unstoppable force, just the pace that he has is relentless. And then the immovable objects, the brains of James Holman and Christopher Smith, being able to calculate the strategy as best they can.
It's looking very pretty here at Motegi in the penultimate round of the season of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Once again, a shout to our championship. I can't say it right tonight. Championship sponsors: Oris Digital, Crockery Direct, Derbyshire Holiday Homes, and Bespoke Shelters. I've got that bit down by now, but still. Actually, Callum Brandt has just corrected me that he didn't actually win the race from it. Lewis won the race, but they won at Mid-Ohio doing it. He says got P2 for it at Hungaroring, so it'd be good if I knew the history of my own championship, wouldn't it? But, oh well, we move on. Speaking of P2s, though, Danny Lee still holding station at the moment, Dan, but don't necessarily think he's under a world of pressure, although it looks like it from the offset. You know, if you tuned in now and saw this, you'd think, flipping heck, he's holding up those boys, but they're happy to sit there, aren't they?
I think Taylor could be waiting for Matt to get a little bit closer and then make his move so that he can have a bit of a team play against him. I found sometimes the Aston's a hard car to fuel save with. I think it's been BOP'd recently, but it was pretty slow down the straight before. You could almost bump draft it in the McLaren, which obviously wouldn't save you any fuel. But one thing to note in this week pack is the last 2 laps for Nils didn't count, so I wonder if he's having a couple of internet drops.
Yes.
So he's clearly not had a slowdown, so that could start to bring in that shaky left leg.
Yeah, he did have a bit of a blink in and out at one point, I think, coming onto the start-finish straight, so potentially that's where the issue lies for him. Philip Hopley has unfortunately been off the circuit here. Ed, maybe just losing it under brakes? Oh, just a bit too hot. Again, easy to do though around a circuit like this, isn't it, Ed?
Yeah.
Sorry, I think
No,
one
I had my
of
mic
us.
muted, sorry.
Oh,
I was speaking and nothing was coming out. I was wondering what's going on. No, what I was saying was because it's a downhill braking zone, it's so easily done. You brake at the point where you think the car's going to stop, but the momentum just carries you down and into the gravel trap. Luckily, the gravel slows you down in this version of iRacing than it did in previous ones, where it was basically just going onto a skid plane and it'd keep you going straight on. So it's arrest the speed and allow him to then turn the car and get back up and running. So thankfully, it wasn't a huge incident.
we were just talking about Nils Corr's lap times, Dan. He's actually just done his best lap of the race as well, sat behind these guys. Do you think that now they're they're over a quarter of an hour through, do you think maybe they'll be figuring out if they've saved enough fuel and then going for it? Is there a certain point where you know that the strategy's working?
I don't think you would ever go for it because Nils especially is going to have calculated his fuel at this pace, so he'll have to stick to this until he stops.
Yeah.
The McLaren used to always have an odd number, so you know you could have a lap where you'd push because you had 0.8 left in the tank. I think Nils is going to be pretty calculated the whole way. I don't think he can rush because it may throw his strategy off towards the end. Interesting to see the two McLarens here are kind of backed up. They're almost bump drafting it at turn 1 and 2. Not quite sure what went on there.
Yeah, it seemed like maybe Taylor Adams, he was very, very close to the back of Danny Lee down the start-finish straight a couple of times. I think maybe just got a little bit too close that time round. Had to back out of it to save fuel, and then I think Matt Slight maybe not expecting it as much. But it really is an art form to save this much. They've got a second back to Dean Powell at the moment, so Dean's not all the way back. He could also save a little bit of fuel, but he's not quite been able to stay with this group at the minute. But there's then 5.6 seconds back to James Holman. However, from the lead of the race, if we look at Simon Povey and then look at our timing screen, there is only 12 seconds, or less than that actually, between himself and James Holman. That's easy a pit stop, isn't it, Ed, if they save that much over the course of the race?
Yeah, it really is. It's all about saving the fuel. But of course, with drivers that are saving the fuel, can't really afford to go for it at any point during the race, because the fuel calculations in iRacing and off of their software as well basically calculates the fuel they're using per laps. It also takes into account the future laps, what they will be doing at that sort of rate of fuel usage. It doesn't then say, oh, with normal fuel usage you'll have 2 laps. It's at the rate you're saving you'll have 2 laps or however many laps left. So they can't really afford to do anything more than what they're currently doing right now if they want to make this strategy work. And all the time they're doing it, Simon Povey is just extending his advantage further and further with a purple lap time, fastest of the race so far, with 0 slipstream whatsoever. He is really going for it now, and that was just over half a second faster than the chasing packing behind. So that's a real statement from Simon.
I'd like to point out he had a big lift and coast on that lap as well, so I think Simon could be at the point where he's trying to save an extra lap now, and he still put a purple lap with that in. So I think he's quick. I think if we see a straight Simon on pace and Neil's having to save at the end, this could make for some fireworks.
Absolutely could. Nils Corr knows what the target will be, and that will be 3rd position in this race, no matter what anybody does from there. Oh, sorry, no matter what anybody does, with Nils Corr in 3rd position, he will win the championship. Taylor Adams, if he had pole position and then went on to win the race, which we know he's not got that point for pole position, he would have had to have Nils in 5th place. Nils is currently there right now, so he's at least beating Taylor Adams to the crown in that regard, as John Roberts has unfortunately gone to do a little bit of Paris-Dakar in the Mercedes. Again, Ed, maybe just a little bit of off-track action with a touch of the curb.
Oh, just over rotates, and I think you might be right. There's a touch of the curb on the way into the corner, and it pitches him into a spin. And when it happens at that speed, there's nothing you can do to save it at all. You're either going to be going straight on if you catch the snap, or doing the safer thing, which is just letting the car spin around, slow the speed down as well, get on the brakes, and then once the car comes to a stop, rejoin the circuit as safely as you can. But it's a tricky circuit. A lot of the drivers getting caught out at this stage of the race. I'll say it does look very pretty, doesn't it, going into the night now. You can see the headlights are a lot more visible on board with Mike Murphy now as they come into turn 1.
Yeah, definitely, and that's part of the beauty of these races. They're a bit more rewarding like that as well when you're driving a race that goes from day to night in changing conditions. We did do a bit of a vote in the Discord for the drivers to choose whether they wanted it to be at this time or it was originally planned to be an hour earlier, so we wouldn't have even got to this sort of point actually with how dark it's going to be. There will actually, Dan mentioned fireworks before, there's actually going to be literal fireworks on the circuit as well if it finishes in what the game considers night, simulator considers night, but we'll have to wait and see. But again, it's another element that iRacing have improved on time and time again since it all started, isn't it, Dan? They've just got better and better with the lighting as time has gone on.
Yeah, and I think they've done the lighting in a way that the cars still look natural. You watch an iRacing broadcast and it's so much better than the other sims. That the cars look like they're on the road. They look like they've got weight. Yeah, when you take a screenshot, sometimes the shadows are a bit iffy, but for broadcasting like this, nothing touches iRacing. Even the headlights, they're brilliant.
Yeah, the one thing I always, to be fair, I've worked with iRacing on a few of the Porsche Esports Super Cup broadcasts. The only thing I slate them for is this sort of pre-rendered fixed image for the headlight bloom that we have. I think if we didn't have that, it would look absolutely perfect, but I always say that it's a bit unbelievable when it looks like the little bloom we've got. I'm just keeping my eye on this group here, Ed, because Mike Horder and Mike Murphy also don't look like they're too urgent to get ahead of Holman and Smith. I'm not sure whether it's because they're not matching the pace, but I mean, Holman again, he's nearly a second slower than Dean Powell each lap here. And the guys behind don't seem too fussed about giving them the hurry up either, so it definitely looks like a very, very considerable fuel-saving tactic, doesn't it?
Yeah, Mike Horder is a driver that we know is very sort of coy and smart with the way he approaches the races. Was it in the Winter Tour where he was getting great results, but we weren't really focusing on him too much because he flew under the radar very frequently, and last season as well. Yes, you're right, Chaz. So I think Mike Horder, he knows just as much as the cars ahead know that the best way to get a result from this race is to fuel save like mad, and he's in the perfect place to do it, in behind the two best in the business at doing exactly that.
Simon Povey just had a purple lap of the race as well last time round. Fastest lap, 1:57.54. So he's clearly decided now that he's not going to save any more fuel and he's just going to crack on with it. He was 0.7 of a second quicker than Danny Lee on that previous lap. You can see the gap getting bigger now. It's 4.8, now 4.9 seconds for the Spontex CDM Esports pink McLaren. And it looks very, very likely that Simon is not going to slow down at all for anything. And, well, we wouldn't want him to, because that's what we know him for. But this is starting to, I don't know, the body language is starting to change a little bit here, Dan, from Taylor Adams. Do you think he's just trying to maybe send a bit of a message to Danny Lee to say, look, I know you're going slowly, but can you please just give it a little sort of 5% more?
At this point, the front engine cars are going to be getting loose. The fuels came out of them, the track's getting colder, they're going to be on edge. The McLarens tend to come into their own a little bit here because the weight's coming off the front, so they only have to deal with a little bit of understeer. You can still push the car, especially on exit, whereas that's where the Aston's going to struggle here. Taylor could be trying to jump him in the pits just so that he doesn't have as much traffic, but he's going to have to save during the second stint, so I think he'd want to at least be near his teammate.
Very, very good point. Beautiful scene there as they come through into the final corners. You can see where the sun has just set in the background. It may be the land of the rising sun, but right now it's the land of the setting sun here in Japan for the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. This is round 14 of a 15-round season. And it's been an absolute joy to cover this series once again. We've got these two battle packs going on right now, with Danny Lee leading Taylor Adams, Matt Slight, Nils Corr, and then Dean Powell in the middle of it. Then you've got James Holman, Christopher Smith, Mike Horder and Mike Murphy. There's also a battle behind, actually. Dennis Van Beelen has got Ben Chalcraft and Toby Johns in here with him. Toby again, Ed, as I mentioned before, the storyline with Toby is this continuous improvement since we first saw him at the SRM Cora Moore.
Yeah, and he's been getting better with every single race, and I think he's really sort of benefited a lot from sort of the lack of busyness around on the circuit, with some of the drivers not making it here tonight. It allows him to focus more on his own driving rather than worrying about what everyone else is doing around him. And I think that's got him more and more focused to get those good results. And we can see it now. He's chasing down the cars ahead and looks good to get in the mix of it. Whereas before, I think we saw he was more, especially at the Coromon, knew that he was a newer driver.
Yeah.
Sort of stayed out of it, stayed out of everyone's way. But now he's really up for a battle and getting stuck in, which is always what you want to see. If a driver's always tentative and not going to be properly willing to fight, they're never going to learn and get quicker. So to see Toby Johns doing exactly this, getting up to the back end of the two BMWs, he could be a real one to watch in seasons to come.
Absolutely could be, and it's not just any beamers either. You know, Ben Chalcraft and Dennis Van Beelen, regular top 10 finishers and big point scorers, these guys. So he's doing an awesome job at managing the McLaren at the moment. TAJ Racing, son of Alex Johns, actually, with the championship sponsor Bespoke Shelters. Hence, he's got the branding on the car. I did that livery for him as well, which I'm quite proud of. But he's running that one at the moment in 13th position. Like I say, everybody will score points if they manage to finish. Simon Povey into the pits, then Danny Lee also in, and no surprise, Taylor Adams, Matt Slight and Nils Corr all continue on here. So now the cards are down on the table here, Dan. This is where they've got to call each other's bluff a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that Dean didn't manage to save a little bit more fuel to get that extra lap, but it could be a team play to come back out with Daniel. It'll be interesting to see how the second half of this plays out. I think that second to sixth pack might have just been split up with this move.
Now, interestingly, Danny Lee has got going and Simon Povey has not. Danny Lee takes to the circuit and has a decent advantage over the McLaren, which is very intriguing. Simon was stationary for 24 seconds, but it seems like Danny is the one that's short-fueled it.
His pit stop was 9 seconds slower, according to my end.
Yeah.
He could have done that to try and latch on to Simon. We've seen that happen quite a few times last season. Just to get out the traffic, follow a faster car, you can gain some of the delta. I think he's going to shot himself in the foot for chances at the race win, but it could be a good shout to secure a podium.
Absolutely.
He's done a Simon.
Yeah.
He's done a Simon Povey. He always does this. I know you'll probably know as much as I do that when you're trying to chase him down on the circuit, especially one with a lot of slipstreaming opportunities, he has a short bit spy around about that 10-second mark. We saw it at Monza, didn't we, Chaz? Just earlier on this season, Simon short-fueled it and built up about an 8-second margin that he was then able to maintain and build on towards the end of the race that saw him comfortably come through for the race victory in the end, because he was quicker over one lap and wasn't having to worry about helping the other drivers behind along in the slipstream. We've seen it now work the other way around with Danny Lee opting for the short fuel stop and maybe also letting Simon pass but then latching onto him in the slipstream to save some fuel. Or he might be trying to maybe slow down Simon and give some of the other cars in behind a fighting chance of the race victory.
You never know. Top 3 come in. James Holman and Christopher Smith actually are in as well. That's very interesting based on what they were doing. They are in at the same time as guys that were further up the road. So we'll have to see how that plays out for them in the long run. The Regenta McLarens actually both off the ground there to take tyres. Is Nils Corr going to hop out in front of them? I'd put a little bit of money on it. Not too much, though. They're getting to 14 seconds now. 15, which is Danny Lee's pit stop length. You could see Danny come out of the final corner. 19 seconds, 20, 21, 22. Yeah, they're going to get going any time now. The two Regenta cars in perfect sync get going. Nils Corr losing a little bit of time. But yeah, Danny Lee does head out onto the circuit ahead of these guys. And you can see that they are not anywhere near where Simon Povey is. Simon 4 seconds clear of the two Regenta McLarens. So yeah, an interesting little dynamic going on here now. But Danny has put himself to the front of the field. We'll have to see if A, he can hold on to it, and B, how he works out the rest of the strategy here, Dan.
It's definitely going to be interesting. I think Simon's already taken 9/10 out of him on the outlap. So this, I think he's going to try and sit behind Simon. I don't think he's going to try and slow him down here. Danny's best opportunity is just to sit in Simon's toe and get dragged along. If he can keep up, that is. I think Simon's got a lot left in the tank that he's not quite showing yet.
We'll have to keep our eye on it and see what they can do. But Danny, he's got the pace to stay up there, but yeah, I think you're right. You know, there might not be too much of a fight if Simon catches up to him. Got a bit of a scrap further down. The very sort of dazzle camoed cars of John Roberts and Toby Johns glued to each other, the McLaren and the Mercedes. Now Toby looking down the inside of John. Oh, he sort of sent him the dummy there, sold him the dummies. Oh no, they've come together mid-corner. I think John expected him to get by. And then I think he expected him to not after that, and then changed his mind, and around he goes. That is a bit of a 6 of one, half a dozen the other there, maybe, Ed. I think just a typical racing miscommunication. Yeah,
we'll have a look at the replay again just to fully catch how it all unfolded, maybe in a slightly slower speed, because we can see now up on the inside. Yeah, Toby does a pretty decent job, to be fair. Getting onto the apex, doesn't overspeed it into the side of him. I think it was, like you say, just maybe John not quite realising the car was going to be up on his inside, but from the move up the inside from Toby, he didn't really do anything wrong there. It was just the Mercedes cutting across his nose.
We look here at Taylor Adams, who now finds himself in 3rd place.
Simon was 1.6 quicker than Danny that time.
Goodness me.
I'm not sure if Danny's in mega fuel saving mode because he's so short, but yeah, this could be an interesting play. I'm not sure why the Pro Sim guys split strategies there. I feel like the best chance would have been to stick together and work forward, but it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Absolutely. Simon Povey now closing in on Danny Lee. He knows that he's going to definitely have that second stop, but it's just going to be a case of how short is it. He's already opened up his advantage in the opening stint. He's just going to try everything he can from there to continue it on. Nils Corr is actually 2 seconds behind Matt Slight now. He's very much in his own little space here, is Nils Corr. He's not in a position to really upset the apple cart, so to speak, when it comes to Simon trying to get within striking distance of the championship. If Nils finished in 5th place, the championship would still go down to the final round of the season. There would be a 21-point gap between the two of them if it finished as is right now. So yeah, there's definitely still a lot to play for here, Ed, and that's why we love these things. You know, it always comes down to right near the end of a campaign, doesn't it?
Yeah, but of course it might not finish this way, and I can't imagine it will do, because Danny Lee is going to lose that position to Simon Povey and potentially Taylor Adams as well. Might still finish ahead of Nils Corr though, so Nils could still lose a bit more ground in the championship as it stands. He's still doing a good job in terms of putting himself in a favourable position coming into that final round by scoring some decent points. He won't be able to be championship leader or championship victor elect after tonight, but he can get very close to it, that's for certain.
Yeah, he continues to chase down.
Sorry, Chaz. I don't think Neil's strategy's worked out quite as well as what he was hoping here. He's dropped out of draft of Matt Slight now, so he's going to have to fuel save purely on his own. He's not going to have that added help of draft to keep closer to Simon and Danny at the front.
Yeah, it's getting more and more difficult for Nils Corr, so we'll have to see how he manages it. He's done a purple sector 2 as well, so if that tells you he's not fuel saving, then I don't know what else will. He is pushing to just try and get in that slipstream. He's 1.6 seconds behind Matt Slight now, but let's not forget that Matt himself gets help from his teammate in front as well. It's one of the things that really, if we were going to praise the Regenta Sim Racing drivers for anything this season, Ed, it's been the fact that they work together so well at every given opportunity, don't they? They have been absolutely so switched on. A great addition to the teams.
Really have been. It's been great to see. Thoroughly see them up to the best start of the season. They have come back brilliantly from that setback, and we do often see the first time that drivers turn up into a championship, they find a few hiccups along the way. So it wasn't necessarily the case for Apex Racing Academy. They seem to get off very well, but certain teams can just struggle a little bit in their first season, but then down the line they get familiar and they know how the other drivers race, and that's when they can really go on and make a charge of it.
Absolutely. Just apologies again, by the way, everybody, for any time that any of us drop or drop out of Discord for just a second. Seems like it's potentially a server issue there. I'm streaming to the guys in the same channel tonight, but that's something I don't normally do. But at the same time, it's just voice that keeps dropping out for us here and there. So we do apologise for that, but we make do with it and we crack on. Just like Simon Povey is cracking on here, right up to the back of Danny Lee. Do you reckon, Dan, at any point here, he could potentially use the Aston Martin for just a little bit of fuel saving before he then has a pop to get by?
To cut out a little bit here, but we can see Simon Povey now just cutting around the outside, potentially looking for a move here on Danny Lee. But Danny doesn't seem to be looking really eager to get out of his way.
No, definitely doesn't. He's not exactly defending it hard, but he's, well, I'll say that actually. He's putting the car in the middle of the road here, and yeah, he is putting up a proper fight over Simon Povey. So, intriguing stuff. Very intriguing. Simon won't be a fan of that, and he's now moved to the right-hand side to try and get this move done as they go back up the hill. Danny Lee, this will be one for the viewers, I tell you. Down the inside, he now holds his line. Simon Povey has to try and get a switch back. The little McLaren darting this way and that way. This is not part of the plan for Simon Povey, and he will not be over the moon with this, but at the end of the day, it's great, hard racing, and that's what we always have here in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. And goodness me, he's having to work hard here, Dan.
I think trying to hold Simon Povey off is like trying to walk a tiger on a retractable dog lead. It might work for a minute, but it's not going to last very long. I think Simon's pace here is mega. Danny will put up a fight, but I think it's a little bit silly. He has to pit another time. He'd be better just following in the draft and making advantage of the pace.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of my favourite puns of all time from my favourite commentator, Charlie Cox, was that when Jason Plato told his teammate to hold off an angry Ivan Muller, Charlie Cox screamed that it was like trying to hold off the Terminator with a water pistol. He says, you've got to be absolutely joking. No chance. But you know what? Danny's doing a great job of doing this right now. And I would just wonder how long he'll be able to keep it up for. We'll have to wait and see. Mike Murphy is having a fight in the background as well with James Holman. He's been sort of bungee cording off the back of that car. James now pushing on in the Mercedes. Not quite gone to plan for them so far, as Mike Horder is now ahead of him. Christopher Smith is down in 13th position. Chris actually was in the pits for 36 seconds, so I'm not sure if he's had some sort of penalty or something there, Ed. Not quite sure what's happened.
No, I'm trying to wrap my head around what might have happened there as well. But it probably wasn't in the game plan, was it, to get that penalty? If it was the case, we can't really see exactly what's in the cause of that.
No, not at all. Not quite sure what's gone on there. And we are just going to quickly change Discord server, everybody. So if you just bear with us 2 moments, we're just going to go quiet on comms for a sec, and we will be right back with you. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. Just wondering, just in case the Discord server is the issue, we have changed over to a different one, so we'll see whether this works out. But the battle at the front here, Dan, still going on. Danny Lee in that Aston, still somehow ahead of Simon Povey, and this will make for fantastic entertainment on his own stream as well, won't it?
I'll tell you what's nice to see, Simon's not spamming that headlight flash button. That drives me up the wall. It does absolutely nothing. Yeah. But I'm sure Simon will be trying everything. Danny will be throwing the defensive book of driving at it. I don't think Simon's going to succumb and start fuel saving. I think he is going to push it. They're not actually losing much time to Taylor, but 4/10 on the last lap, so I don't know how well this is going to play off.
We'll have to keep our eye on it though, but yeah, it's all playing into changing the bigger picture for these guys, isn't it, Ed? And we know better than anybody with the amount of races that we've watched from up here that one lap where you're just a couple of tenths off another driver can make all the difference come the checkered flag.
It really can do, and it is just about getting those little incremental gains and things that you might look back on as well over the course of a season that might have happened earlier on that you think that was a really important move. You wouldn't think about it during the time, but those little moments can make a huge difference at the end of a long season. And I'll tell you what, Danny Lee is going to be loving this battle. He's going to be grinning from ear to ear just to be in this fight with Simon Povey. I think he realises that potentially the race victory was going to be difficult to achieve. There could have been a podium. There could still be a podium on the cards for him, but he's going to be loving battling with Simon and being able to hold him off. He wasn't really in the battle with Taylor Adams and Mats. Like, he was just sort of being used as just basically a brick to punch a hole in the air for him. So now he's going to be loving the battle because we know what Danny is like. He always tries a move, doesn't he? He always darts around to the inside looking for those little half moves, trying everything he can to make a move or to defend as well. And I think he's been missing that a little bit just by playing the strategy game.
Yeah, he's doing a great job though. Last time round 158.55, still quicker than Simon was, of course, holding that position. 20 minutes left to go here, 1/3 left in the race, and into the pits he comes now. That's going to relinquish it instantly. Simon Povey goes through and into the race lead, and now he's going to put the fast laps in. But look at that behind, 2.8 seconds to the McLarens behind there, Ed. Sorry, Dan, one of you. They're closing in big time now, and Simon will feel that in his rearview mirrors.
Yeah, I think he'll feel it. I don't think he'll be fazed by it. I think it's given him a bit of a mountain to climb at the end. The bigger pressing thing here is Taylor Adams and Matt Slate have just had two or three really good laps, and they increased the gap to Nils pretty big. Nils' last lap seems to have brought it back in. He found nearly a second, so yeah, this is going to get tasty, I think.
Very tasty indeed, as it always does in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Another quick shout to our sponsors of Oris Digital, Crockery Direct, Derbyshire Holiday Homes and Bespoke Shelters. I love having each of them on board, and of course we look forward to a 5th season of the championship. Kenjo Racing saying, man, I could go for some crisps right now. Kenjo, I'm so glad that you said crisps and not chips. Kenjo is an American colleague of ours, and yeah, loving the support for the Minardi SimSport boys. They've also got Christopher Smith. There's a third one out there as well for you, Kenjo, tonight. So there's a different variation of flavour in terms of the RD SimSport BMW. Chris wearing this as a celebration of his recent first victory in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. But yeah, plenty to look at here, Ed, and another very unsung hero performance here by Dean Powell so far. He's going really well, isn't he, at this moment?
Yeah, he looks to be going a decent rate of knots now, and with the next round of pit stops approaching probably within the next 10 minutes, we'll have to see what he can do maybe with the strategy core, because he looks like he's been saving a lot of fuel up until now. And looking at our timing software, he came in lap 13, 25 seconds stop on the dot, pretty much the same as the cars behind the head on lap 18. Might use a little ground on those. Just.
Yeah, sorry everybody. Literally just while we were talking about it, the
lap, lap.
Yeah, sorry everybody, but seemingly while while we were just talking about it, Discord seems to have absolutely cacked the bed for just a moment. So unfortunately, we're just going to have to wait for it to stop being a pain in the backside. I'm going to just continue on solo comms for a minute, just so while I can keep an eye on the ping itself. And the boys can still hear me, but you may not hear them, just in case it comes through a bit robotically. But we'll throw back to the guys in just a sec. Typical technology being an absolute pain in our backside, but it's one of those things. As Christopher Smith has actually come back into the pit lane, and he has now completed a second pit stop of just 9 seconds, 8.95 seconds this time. And that is a much shorter stop than we saw a lot of people do in the first part. Great to see the lighting has got a lot lower here as well. Beautiful, beautiful conditions, and I can tell you, unfortunately, that Discord has absolutely gone for it. And the ping is all over the place at the moment, so really sorry, everybody. I'll have to just see whether we can get... I'm just going to see, Dan, you've messaged me saying you can hear me okay. Have you said something about Christopher Smith, that there's potential news on him from before?
So he stopped at the same time as Holman, but he had a 57.5 second stop, which is about 12 seconds different. So I'm not sure if he picked up a penalty on the way into the pits. I know there was chat in the Discord specifically from Chris about entering the pits with a slowdown. Maybe he just got it wrong, but I'm not sure why he's had to have that second stop. Yeah,
it's quite interesting.
I think with the second stop is if you have a slowdown penalty as you come in the pits, iRacing's way of basically stopping you from serving that penalty while on the pit limiter, because you're going to be going slower than the Delta anyway. It basically detects the slowdown as you're coming in and forces you to have a drive-through penalty or a stop and go, depending on how severe it is. So it's basically iRacing's way of circumnavigating some drivers that in the past were able to serve slowdown penalties in the pit lane.
Yeah, it usually adds it to your first stop, but he pitted on lap 14 and we're now lap 21. So he wouldn't have been able to drive around with the back flag.
Maybe not then, maybe it was just a different strategy call potentially, but from what I can remember, it always seems to send you around again from at least my memory.
We've got two drivers here that are fans of the number 8, Ben Shellcraft in the number 88 car with Danny Lee in the number 188 car. Side by side here as Danny looks down the inside in the Aston, moves up into 10th position. Strategy's not quite worked out for him at the moment though, but if we look on the graphic on the left hand side, you'll see that he has done 2 pit stops, whereas all the other guys have done just the 1 at the moment, so a lot of them will have to come in again. He's got Dennis Van Beelen in front of him. Taylor Adams and Matt Slight are right together now, but importantly, Nils Corr is within a second here, Ed, so he is starting to get back into that slipstream range of these 2 McLarens, and importantly, he currently holds on to 4th place as well.
Yeah, it's all coming up rosy for Nils Corr, at least in this moment in time. At one position from the start of the race, and like you say, chasing down a podium that would see him provisionally crowned champion here tonight. Knows what he needs to do, but knows as well the cost of making that move and it not coming off. Can all but seal it with a 4th place, just needs to essentially score points on the final race of the season.
Yeah, effectively all he'd need to do in the final race meeting is score 2 points if he finishes where he is right now. If Simon Povey takes the race victory and with pole position as well, Nils would be 23 points clear in the standings. So that would mean that if we go to the finale at Suzuka in a week, he would only need to finish in 18th position to definitely guarantee that title. So it's been lovely to see this from Nils Corr though. It's not over yet, still 13.5 minutes left to go. And now that he's in this slipstreaming range, he could very happily sit behind these 2 McLarens, but it depends, doesn't it, Dan? He's had to push to get there, so it's what fuel he's potentially saved on the way up to them, isn't it?
I think he's probably saved more, if I was to take a guess, just based on the McLaren fuel usage. So I think he'll jump 1, if not both. It just depends how tight he's going to be on fuel at the end. He might have burned his reserve here, so he can't go flat out, whereas the McLarens can. I think Simon should have this in the bag, because he has been saving the whole time. Yeah, I think it's just going to be a bit of a lottery, because everyone's strategy hasn't played out exactly as they wanted it to. The 2 Regenta cars are doing an awesome job here, and I think that's going to keep them up there.
Danny Lee there, trying the old Danny Lee fake down the inside of Dennis Van Beelen. Ed, how many times have we seen that? It's quite funny actually you watch his streams back and you see him try and pull that move off as well and go for the fake. He really aggressively goes for it, and I think it was his teammate Dean that mentioned it to him actually back at Phillip Island over comms. He was saying, like, flipping heck, I thought you'd lost it that. You know, you'd made that much of an aggressive move. I thought you'd lost it for a second there. And Danny's like, no, I'm just going for a look, just having a little bit of a giggle. He's all over the back of the Beamer right now as well.
Yeah, he's really putting the pressure on. There's Van Beelen car, but not quite going for the moves. Focusing on the exit, they're getting that later apex, and look at the difference in speed off of the corner.
Wow.
He set that up brilliantly, went a little bit tight to the inside to force Dennis to take a slightly compromised line. Not massively, but the sort of ramifications for that. He's ahead into the braking zone and already now up into 9th place. Lovely little move there, and that was a masterclass of forcing a driver to take a compromised line and then getting them on the exit.
Great stuff by Danny Lee, really is. He and his teammate Dean Powell have been another great addition to the grid this season. Same too with Dennis Van Beelen as well. Some real characters in the championship to add to an already full community of great characters here. All 20 cars still running at the moment, everybody on to score points. But Matt Slight, well, without any disrespect to Matt, we've referred to him as sometimes Taylor Adams' rear gunner in certain circumstances, but Matt has very often been the one that's been fastest in a practice session, sometimes even in a qualifying session as well. Matt has been absolutely rapid, and the two of them have got such great respect for each other as teammates. But now, that rear gunner opportunity, that rear gunner role is going to have to come true, unfortunately, for Matt, knowing that Nils Corr is closing on them so quickly. And that big BMW, well, we were saying about it's hard to look around it earlier on, Dan, but it fills the mirror up pretty well as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think Matt just needs to keep his head here. They have got a team championship to think about. I think the drivers is looking unlikely with how quick Nils is here. I think Matt just needs to keep his head and try and keep this podium just for the points. Don't do anything too risky. But you could also play on the fact that Nils needs to finish here. He might not do anything drastic either.
Yeah.
It just depends what card he wants to play here. You could quite easily force Nils' hand, but it depends what they want to do.
Yeah, he doesn't have to. I think the thing to remember here, Ed, is that he doesn't have to seal the championship here tonight. It's not like he doesn't, it's not like he completely loses the championship if he doesn't do it here this evening. It's more a case of whether he wants to get it done early or whether he's all right to just score 2 points at Suzuka to seal it all. Because you never know what happens in motorsport, do you?
You really don't, but if I was Nils, I'd just take this position now. It's a guaranteed high point scoring position in 4th place. You're not going to get the championship sealed now, but you've got to back yourself in those scenarios. You can't go into the end of the season and think that you could lose it. Yeah. Especially with the advantage that he has. That's not the right mindset, because it can just come true. It's all the better to finish where you are now and know at the end it's going to be, or think of it as 30 or 25, however many parade laps before you're crowned the champion. That's the way you've got to look at it. Get the points on the board now and then just focus on finishing and being the champion no matter where you finish, because you're going to back yourself to be in the top 18. You've got to.
Unfortunately, Mark Johnson has pulled over here and retired from the race. He's pulled the car over at the second pit exit and jumped straight to the pits, and that is that, unfortunately. Toby Johns was just in the pits at the time, but yeah, Mark Johnson has had to, unfortunately, leave the session and will not be scoring points here this evening in this 20-car field, so hope all is all right with Mark. But he's dropped out from this one. 8.5 minutes left to go here in Motegi for the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Chaz Draycott, Dan McCauley and Ed May in the commentary box. We've got Dan as a special guest for the evening. And we've got a great old battle going on here, Dan, as Taylor Adams tries to break away. Simon Povey's actually come into the pits. And then we've got to think about Nils Corr and Matt Slight in the mix as well.
I think the best thing Matt can do here is just put the brakes on, back him up a bit. Nils will probably want to get it sewn up tonight, because anything can happen at Suzuka. It's so easy to make a mistake there, especially in these big heavy cars with the long sweeping high load corners. If you drop a wheel in a gravel trap, you can quite easily hit a wall and that's race over. I think Nils really will want to get this wrapped up tonight, and Matt can change that. So yeah, the last 7.5 minutes is going to be interesting.
Certainly is. We've got James Holman here, who's just gone past Simon Povey, actually. Simon's just come out behind him, Doesn't change their positions outright, of course, but it's an extra car, an extra very quick car as well that Simon has spent a lot of time fighting with, that he is now behind on the circuit. Simon completes his second pit stop of the race. He's the highest placed car of those that has pitted twice. Danny Lee is next up behind him, but he's 14 seconds back. Then we've got Ben Chalcraft, Mike Horder, Dean Powell, a few other guys all coming out of the pits here. Dean opening up turns 1 and 2. But the lighting is very much gone here now, Ed. It's all very much down to the headlights and a little bit of flood lighting here at Motegi, but it looks beautiful and it's exactly what we want for a sort of almost end of season finale.
Yeah, definitely. We won't be having it at Suzuka because, well, there are floodlights at the circuit in real life. Oh, it's Nils Corr. Was that a little look, was it, on Matt Slight?
I think Slight went wide. I think Slight went a bit wide. He's starting to rattle him a little bit now, is Nils.
Yeah, going back to what we said earlier, though, you can't really have the end of season in the darkness at the final round at Suzuka just because, well, they have floodlights in real life. They aren't modelled in the sim.
No.
So it's just pitch black. So it's not all the best for broadcasting, unfortunately.
And that was a massive lift there by Nils Corr. He is really making sure that he doesn't have to stop for long in the pits at the end here. He's going to hope to jump both of these guys. Are they coming in now? No, Nils is. And did Taylor Adams? Yeah, Taylor Adams came in. Yeah, so Matt Slight continues on for one more lap. So he's actually saved a bit of fuel behind his teammate. But Nils Corr and Taylor Adams both into the pit lane. So interesting that the two Regenta cars have done different things there, Dan.
I think it's just one's been in the draft the whole time. I think that's purely the difference. It's easy to save the other lap. I was going to ask, does Holman have to pit again? Did he save the fuel? But he's in pit lane now, so that's a no. I feel that could have been a really interesting play if he'd managed to save a little bit more. But I think he ended up in no man's land there at the end, which could have hampered it. This fight with the Regenta McLarens is going to go all the way to the death now. Look at how close they are here. I think the McLaren will have the pace over the BM. And if these two fight, it could bring Matt straight back in.
Absolutely. Nils Corr, importantly for the moment, in front of Taylor Adams. And not too far behind Simon Povey. Only 3 seconds up the road now is Simon. So great stuff by these guys. They're really throwing every strategy card at each other that they can. And we've now got Taylor Adams trying to have a look down the inside of Nils Corr. Do you think maybe for just this one lap here, Ed, while he waits for his teammate to pit, he's just going to play it safe and wait behind Nils Corr?
I think he's going to maybe actually battle with Nils Corr to slow down the BMW, if anything else, in the fighting. That's what I would do if I was Taylor Adams in this situation, just because then we know for definite that his teammate is going to have a higher chance of getting out ahead of the BMW that he needs to beat.
It's all very interesting. Not skepticism. No, that's not what it is it?
Speculation.
Speculation. Thank you, Ed. I need a thesaurus on hand for stuff like that. But that's all we do as commentators. We speculate, and I suppose it's one of the difficult things. Ooh, he's really slowing him down on the apex there, is Nils Corr. It's one of the difficult things about this, though, isn't it, Dan? Compared to even real-world motorsport from up here in the box, you never know what the drivers are doing anywhere near as much in the sim. There's nobody to tell you, really.
It's so hard. Normally in real life you can get an idea, there's telemetry and stuff that's available to everyone, but in this it's tough. iRacing locks down so much, it's just kind of guesswork. You can tell by inputs and stuff, but yeah, it makes it a bit more interesting, but it does make your job an awful lot harder.
Well, we're glad to have you in the box with us, Dan. We hope you're enjoying it so far. We've got now Matt Slight just getting moving in the McLaren. He powers up on the pit exit, and any moment now Taylor Adams and Nils Corr are both going to go past him. So Matt Slight comes out third in this fight, which puts Nils Corr second outright in the race, and that puts him in a championship winning position. He would be 27 points clear if he finishes where he is, and that would have him in a championship winning place. He could finish behind the car right behind him now, Taylor Adams. He could finish third and still be champion. But if both of these McLarens manage to get past him in the last 2 laps, then that is the championship going down to the wire at Suzuka. So it's very much all still to play for here, Ed. This is exactly how we wanted it, though, in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge.
Yeah, Nils Corr having a great race as well. He didn't have the best qualifying, only landed in 5th place, but to get back up through the race with some great management. I think that's the key thing, is the way he's managed the race and managed the fuel as well up until this point is what's seen him have such a great championship. This has basically been his championship personified in a single race. His qualifying hasn't been at the level we've been used to seeing from Nils Corr. He's still had some good results, but never quite up to the standards that we're used to. But his race management has been absolutely crucial for getting him up onto the podium and on those race victories as well. And it's seeing him perfectly illustrated tonight.
Definitely has done, and you've got to give a hand to Simon Povey as well. I memean, we blow so much smoke up Simon Povey's backside, and typically as well, having you two in the box, two of the drivers that have raced against him the most here to do so. It's just his outright pace all of the time is just what gets him out of hot water, isn't it, Dan? He just drives away and then manages it in his own time. It's incredibly impressive all the time.
I think he has the pace and the consistency that it really is a great example of the series. You can have Nils, whose race management is fantastic, but Simon's pace at certain places can still outweigh that 5-6 seconds that he sometimes gains in the stop. So it's really, really great to see. One thing that's also going to get a bit interesting here is Chris Smith with his double pit stop has dropped down the order, which means the gap in the team's championship has came right down with this performance from Taylor and Matt. If they can both get past Nils, Suzuka's going to be down to the 1 point that RD are used to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at the moment, Regenta are on for third and fourth, so that gives them 20 and 18 points. RD Simsport on for 6th and 13th places in the race, so that is 15 and 8 points. That would mean the championship goes down from 32 points in the favour of RD Simsport to just 17 before the final round of the season. And let's not forget, only one driver could score 25 points if they win the race, so there's plenty on offer in the final race meeting of the season. There would be a point for pole position, 25 for a win, and then 22 for second place in the race. So you're talking a good, do maths Chaz, 48 points between them. And Nils Corr is looking very tasty at the moment, actually. He's not under too much pressure from Taylor Adams. We've stuck with them just to see if Taylor makes the move, because while Simon is on his way to what is potentially going to be his 6th race victory in 8 races, which is just ridiculous. I think it's one of the highest win counts in an entire season of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. We need to remember that Nils Corr is on the brink of doing the big job and taking the title. A few more corners to go then for Simon Povey, and it has been another absolutely star-studded performance by Simon. He comes around the final corner to win round 14 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. But your champion for Season 4 for Satellite Racing is Nils Corr. The German driver does it in the BMW ahead of Taylor Adams and Matt Slight. Taylor completes the podium tonight, but Nils Corr is the champion of Season 4 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. What an excellent job to do it on the night with one round to go, Ed.
That was a brilliant championship from Nils Corr. From start to finish, his consistency has been just unbelievable. Like you said, he's only finished outside of the podium, I think, twice so far this season. Like you rightly said, it was at the start of the season was one of them where he had that first lap incident. Apart from then, he has been pretty much faultless and done exactly what he needed to do. I guarantee you would have seen more race victories if it was a closer fight, but because he had the advantage to Simon, he was able just to manage and put through a really nice, dominant championship drive. But we can bet that next season he's going to have a lot of challenges to try and take it from him. Certainly Simon Povey will be hungry for more.
Absolutely, and what a great race as well, Dan, for this evening. You know, going under lights and into the darkness, lots of fuel strategies at play, and everybody really threw a lot of different cards at each other. Normally we see 1 or 2 strategies, don't we? But this time, I mean, look at them all now pushing Nils here. Great entertainment from these guys, but there were so many strategies all over the place, weren't there?
I think there was so many strategies at the start that all had to change, and then they showed up at the end. Judging by Nils, for example, his stop was pretty much perfect. As you can see, he's got no fuel left. I think he perfectly used that extra fuel in the middle of the race to close the gap to the delta he ended up with in the stop, and that's what's won him the championship on the night, so fully deserving after that performance.
This is a beautiful scene right now. It's like a guard of honour. He's got his good friend Dennis Van Beelen, ex-teammate as well of his. They work together in Discord as well when they're racing like this. You've got Mike Murphy helping to push as well. The 2 Regenta McLarens in there, James Holman, all of them sort of giving Nils Corr this guard of honour. He is your champion in Season 4 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. He came into the series last season and he made an impression, let's say, in the first round, but he has been such a great character to have around. So lovely, always really helpful with everybody, getting involved in the banter as well. And, I mean, his driving, Ed, we saw him really come to the fore in the GT4 Winter Tour, where he took a number of victories, nearly won that championship as well in the off-season, but I think we all knew that he was going to go for it this time round, and it's a well-deserved title.
Yeah, it really is. He's got his mate alongside him as well, Dennis Van Beelen, going almost in tandem with him, as I think Nils has actually run out of fuel and he's been pushed along by the
Everybody.
whole field. Everyone's pushing him over the line. A little bit too much there from Simon right behind, but no, it's great to see Nils Corr with the support from everyone, recognising him as the worthy champion that he is, but also it's wonderful to see his mate Dennis Van Beelen that we actually had a word with, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think last time out, that was saying how great it is to have someone like Nils to help you and get you to grips with the championship and the racing and with setups and everything. Well, not with setups, but with driving the setup around the circuits.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, he's done an amazing job. He joined... Oh, no, Simon! Simon's gone in with him as well. But he joined Satellite Racing for the Winter Tour, and he's been fantastic since joining them. He was fantastic in the Chicane Online Racing Machine as well. A little well-done kiss there from Taylor Adams. I think
They're
Ben
trying to get him
Chalcraft...
facing the right way, I think.
Ben Chalcraft's going to join in as well. It's just a massive car park down here. Oh, Philip Hopley's just... Dennis Van Beelen and Philip Hopley have come to blows. Look at them all, bless them. But this, I mean, to be fair, Dan, you know, this is another little highlight of just how much fun all these guys have. You know, they've just raced so hard for an hour and really tried to get one over on each other so much that they still have a laugh directly after the race while the adrenaline is still there. It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, you absolutely hate some people during a race, but it's because they're so smart or they've done something that you really didn't expect. And yeah, as soon as the race is done, everyone's the first to congratulate each other in the sim, and clearly before they've even got out of the car, they're congratulating each other here. So yeah, it's a great showing for how good this community is. So props to yourself, Ed and Andy, for building it up to what it is today.
Thank you very much, Dan. Just give us 2 seconds, everybody. We'll put some music on. We're just going to quickly switch over to the other Discord again, and we'll be right back with you, and we'll get a word from our newly crowned champion. We'll see you in a sec. Okay, so let's quickly go over the race results, shall we? There's something not to forget. Because while Nils took the championship, Simon Povey took another very impressive race win here. That is his 6th race win in 8 races. Amazing stuff. Welcome back, Simon. Nils Corr, fantastic stuff with 2nd place. Really made the strategy work, and he takes the title in Season 4. Taylor Adams and Matt Slight working so well together as a team right to the very end. 3rd and 4th for them. Danny Lee eventually finishes in 5th place. He'll be really pleased with that, considering the pressure in the early stages. Then it was James Holman and Mike Horder, with Dean Powell eventually finishing in 8th place. 9th place went the way of Mike Murphy, with Rob Sharp actually recovering to a top 10 position. Great stuff from Rob, considering he was backwards at the end of lap 1. Then it was Dennis Van Beelen in 11th place, with Ben Chalcraft in 12th. Christopher Smith unfortunately dropping down into 13th, with Stephen Burns and Toby Johns 14th and 15th. Then it was John Roberts, with Gilles Gardner in 17th, Martin Kenyon 18th, Philip Hopley 19th, and unfortunately the only retiree from the night, Mark Johnson. So, it's time to have a word with the man himself. Obviously, out of everybody, he's first in the entire championship and has taken the title. Nils Corr, you are the champion of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. You must be over the moon, my friend. Congratulations.
Yeah, good evening, guys. I needed a P2 to get this championship, and that's what I got. So, yeah, couldn't be any happier right now.
It didn't look like an easy race, to be fair, throughout that one, because qualifying, you weren't right at the front, but you were still amongst it. But those guys, they really put up quite the fight, didn't they?
Oh, definitely. Obviously, the BMW is not very suited for this track. There's a lot of hairpins and 90-degree corners which are very slow, and McLaren is just a complete rocket out of there, and the Aston is quite good around the corners, the tight corners. In the BMW, you really have to just try to gain some time on the braking zones, and then the rest was a bit of fuel saving, and it was really tight in the end.
Now, looking all the way back to the 16th of January when the championship started at Laguna Seca, 2 corners in, you'd had contact with Matt Slight, and you were already fighting an uphill battle. Did you think that you'd be able to bring it back like you did to take the championship at that point, or do you not even have that in your memory anymore?
Well, at that point I didn't think about that at all. It was only after the next 3 races where I was able to win a few more, where I started to realize I could actually do this.
And when we've got 1 round left of the championship now where you can enjoy the moment, we go to Suzuka. Is it a circuit that you enjoy? Are you looking forward to that finale?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's Suzuka is probably also one of my favorites. Has a very nice flow of that track, so looking forward to it.
And maybe take a final win to seal the championship, eh?
Well, I'm gonna try, but we're not gonna lie, with Simon's consistency right now and the pace he got in that McLaren, that's hard to beat.
Yeah, he's been on another planet as Simon, but at the end of the day, Nils, you've got the job done, mate, and it is a title for you in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. We're all so pleased for you, mate. It's a very popular title, I can tell you that. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go to enjoy the moment?
Yeah, definitely. I would like to shout out Satellite Racing, our sponsors, also my former team, COR, especially also Dennis, who has done his first season here now, and he did very well, I think. So, yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Nils. Fantastic stuff. Lovely to see you get the win with 1 round to go, and we'll see you at Suzuka. But enjoy the rest of your evening, enjoy the moment, and well done.
Thank you very much, guys.
Cheers.
See ya.
So, Nils Corr, your champion, Ed, and like I say, thinking back to January, when he had that contact on the very first lap of the season, we all thought, oh heck, that's the setback that we really hoped he wouldn't have after how badly the Winter Tour ended for him.
Yeah, and it was looking like it could have been more of the same from that Winter Tour, like you rightly mentioned, Chaz, because he was certainly up there in the order fighting for the title, and then it was those sprint races, those contacts that he was an innocent party in, and every single occasion it was just rotten luck. It was again at the start of the season just a bit of rotten luck, but he bounced back from that brilliantly, and to go through the whole season only missing out on the podium 1 other time after that first round is just amazing, isn't it? Just the level that he's been operating at this season.
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing to watch and very entertaining, but it's difficult to come back from something like that, isn't it, Dan? When you have a setback at the very start of the season, to bounce back from it is what people remember more than the sort of negative moment to begin with, isn't it?
Yeah, I think for some people it can almost help them because it gives them a drive. You don't have the pressure of leading from the front, but it's a total personal thing. For me, I would rather be at the front. So yeah, the setback is going to be a kick in the teeth, but fingers crossed. Well, clearly he managed to dig deep and get through it.
Absolutely, and someone that managed to get through that race in amongst all the battles and still come away with a podium for the night. Taylor Adams joins us in the box. Taylor, disappointment of course championship wise, but a strong night for you and your teammate Matt for the team's championship over RD.
Yeah, it's much improved over last week. I don't think I was ever going to beat Nils in the championship, so I mean, I'm happy that I finished behind him and Simon in this race. I was a bit frustrated I got the fuel numbers wrong, which cost me second, but still, third's a really good result, and like you say, third and fourth for us in the teams is very good.
Absolutely, it's not an easy circuit either, Motegi. There's no time for any rest at all around this sort of place, and as we were all sort of alluding to before the night, there was maybe potential if someone fuel saved hard enough for a 1-stop, wasn't there? It was quite on the brink.
Yeah, I had practiced a 1-stop, and I thought the pace was going to be slightly faster, so we'd have done 31 laps instead of 30, and then it wouldn't have made it, so I didn't bother. But I think I could have done a 1-stop if I'd known it was going to be a slightly slower overall race.
It was still a very entertaining one, though, and like I say, the battles were quite interesting for us. They were very intriguing because nobody really wanted to make a move on each other, did they? You could tell it was all a game of the maths. Was it hard to focus like that behind the wheel, or was it sort of a bit of muscle memory by the end?
I found it a bit easier because I didn't have to push as hard, and I didn't have to like hit every brake zone perfect. I could lift a bit early and then brake a bit, and I could then miss my braking point by a couple of meters, and it'd be fine. So I could like relax a bit. But yeah, I didn't see the point in fighting Danny in the first stint, especially because if we'd started fighting, then Simon would have got further ahead, and at that point, I was sort of looking ahead to Simon as maybe I could get him on fuel strategy, but it didn't pay off. But yeah, I mean, it was very tactical race for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely the word for it, tactical. It eluded me for the whole race, so I'm glad that someone's finally found it. Still, one more round to go in the championship, though. Another opportunity for some big points at Suzuka. Is that a circuit you enjoy?
Yeah, I definitely enjoy it more than Motegi. I'm not a fan of this track, but I got good results, so it's all good, and I'm looking forward to showing everyone the livery we have for next week as well.
Oh, intriguing. I look forward to seeing that. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to, Taylor, before we let you go, mate?
I'd like to give a shout out to Matt. Big thanks for giving me a hand getting up to speed here, because I'm not a fan, and pulling me around in qualifying because I was very slow. And then also my parents and my girlfriend who are watching, and to you guys and everyone in SRM for being such a great community and putting on such a great event.
Thank you very much, Taylor.
It's a highlight of my week.
It's an absolute pleasure, Taylor. We love doing it, and it's great to have you and Matt as well as such a high-up team in this championship, and we hope that it goes well for Suzuka, and we'll see you very soon.
Yeah, see you next week.
Cheers. And what we'll do, Ed, is if you may take the honours, we'll bring in Taylor's teammate straight off the bat, Matt Slight, who finished just with him in that race.
Hello.
Yeah, welcome, Matt. It was great to see you in that race. It was a nice, tricky battle of strategy, though, wasn't it? What was it you were planning to do at the start of the race, and did you quite get the result you were hoping for?
I mean, based on the practice pace, I was kind of hoping to qualify a little bit higher up. I mean, fourth was all right, but I definitely had the pace to be a bit further up. I think going into the race, me and Taylor kind of had two ideas of what strategy we were going to go for. It was always going to be a little bit of lift and coast to just try and save that little bit to get the edge on everybody. And thankfully, it paid out, and we got the good result in the end. I took maybe a tiny bit more fuel than we needed to on the last two stops. I'm sure Taylor said that, but we're really happy with these results, especially after last week. So.
You saw also coming into the first round of pit stops, you were in behind Danny Lee, but then Danny had a shorter first stop. Did that upset the plan maybe a little bit, that you didn't have the Aston Martin punching a hole in the air for you?
No, I don't think so. I think during that first stint, Taylor was like really up behind Danny. I think we kind of had it in our heads. We're not sure whether Danny was going to be saving. He was going to be pushing to kind of catch up with Simon. And then I think we also kind of anticipated that he might do a short fill to try and catch up with Simon. And then once we saw that had planned out, me and Taylor just, doing our own thing, just trying to hit the number whilst, hitting the lap times as well, which I think we did. And then obviously Nils caught up quite a bit during the second stint, but he just, was a bit too quick today. But, like I said, we're happy with the result.
Yeah, and good for the team's championship as well, isn't it? Finishing third and fourth. RD Simsport finishing, I believe it was 6th and I think 13th. I think that was where we saw Christopher Smith finish in the end. So more ground made up to those guys. Do you think you could maybe leapfrog them in the final round of the season?
I mean, yeah, I'd have to see how many points we gained on them to kind of see whether we're really in with a shout. But, anything could happen, as we saw last week. So, if there's something that happens that goes in our favour, then obviously we'll take it. But I think it's been a great championship run with just a little bit of bad luck here and there. But overall, I think me and Taylor can be happy with our first season in championship. Whether we finish first or second, I think it'll be a good result either way.
And of course, the last round of the season, Suzuka. Going to go out with a bang, try and maybe chase a race victory?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've proved that in this one. Have the pace to be up front with those three. So, I'm going to be going for it.
All the very best to you and your teammate. Before we say goodbye to you, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to on the broadcast?
Yeah, just shout out to you guys for running this great championship, and obviously all the guys that we race against, nearly every week. It's always great racing. And yeah, shout out to Taylor as always for being a good teammate.
No worries. Wonderful to see you, and best of luck.
All right, cheers, Ed.
Cheers, Matt. So, Matt Slight for Regenta Sim Racing. Again, another fantastic team performance there from them, Dan, really showing that, strength in numbers can often very much help in a race like this, where it's all very tactical, as Taylor said.
For their first season in the championship, they've absolutely nailed it. They've done what me and Lewis tried and failed. They're going up against a seasoned team in RD, and as Matt said, they can be happy with whatever the result is coming out of the final one. I think he needs to not doubt himself so much going in at the final round. Anything can happen. If the point swing is as big as it was today, then I think they're definitely in with a chance. If they're managing to practice one stops in a McLaren, I want to know what racing boots they wear, because clearly they've got feather feet. And I think if they can take that into Suzuka, I think it's going to be worth a lot there. I can imagine the undercut on the McLaren tyres is going to be strong. Yeah, there's going to be fireworks, I think, and the guys can be proud. They are definitely a great addition to the championship.
Absolutely are, and we've said it all season, haven't we, Ed, that those guys have been strong from the get-go. We saw them in the Winter Tour and hoped that they would join us, of course, for this championship, and what a great addition they've been. And it's always been an interesting teams championship. I don't feel like we've ever really paid enough attention to the teams championship, other than when it was Apex versus RD, but it's been so close all season, hasn't it?
It really has been, and it's been starting to swing more in the favour of the RD boys, at least in the last round, obviously with their great 1-2 finish, but this time it's been Regenta clawing it back, so it does swing back and forth whichever team is getting the fortune and the points. So we'll see what happens in Suzuka.
We absolutely will. And another quick final word from you, Dan. Thank you very much for jumping into the broadcast this evening. How have you found being up here in the booth watching the series that you used to race in?
I have to say, I've been very disappointed. You've not called anyone Sunshine.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I was hoping that I could drop a couple of digs in about that, but no, it's been fantastic to sit on the other side of the broadcast for once. Just to be involved with these guys again, it's brilliant, and they definitely didn't disappoint with the race tonight. I think it's definitely one of the best of the season. I'll definitely be tuning in next week again, because I can't really miss this. It's brilliant.
Well, it's been fantastic to have you, Dan, and thanks again as well, Ed. It's always a pleasure to work together up here in the commentary box. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for here, though, on Chaz Draycott Media this evening. Thanks once again to the championship sponsors, Oris Digital, Crockery Direct, Derbyshire Holiday Homes, and Bespoke Shelters. Simon Povey takes his 6th race win out of 8 after his return, and Nils Corr is the 2024 Season 4 champion of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Thanks once again for watching, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. Once again, thanks to Dan and Ed for jumping in, and we will see you in a week's time for the season finale at Suzuka. 4 French drivers at the French Grand Prix trying to win this on the final lap. They're 3 wide again. Guillaume down the inside. Guillaume moves across. They're both in front of Milan and Pouget.
But before you know it, we find ourselves here in the very final race of the competition. And then they see truck racing and they think, this is crazy. These are 5-ton machines, 1,200 horsepower brake. Oh, look at that switchback. Oh, you can look and a terrific show off. Ben Gregory now, I love it. 10.5 minutes gone. Senna Lanson tries to go for the race lead.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.